Welcome to ToV Live. It is Valhalla time. And it's one of those times in Valhalla where we're going to talk about making some maps. And wait a second. Click the right button there. Oh, everybody, hello. Everybody, welcome to the ToV Podcast live recording night for episode 54. And this is the first time tonight that we're discussing map making. And I'm going to get into a little bit about competitive maps, but we're going to do a little bit of introduction first. And of course, tonight I'm Ryan, aka Tales of Valhalla. We got Joe Crazy with us. We have Josiah Heroscape with us tonight. And as a special guest, mapmaker extraordinaire himself, we have Jack, also known as Shurrig, I believe in the forums as well as Discord. And so yeah, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself for a minute? Say what you're about, since this is your first time on the stream with us.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on tonight, y'all. My name is Shurrig, or Jack. You can call me Jack, whatever. But I'm Shurrig on the forums. I'm a map maker. I am a member of NGC as well as a member of the SOV. But I first got started with map making, and I found the game in like 2017 off of like a friend's Instagram story post, and I just saw this insane map on his floor, and I was like, what is that game? I need to know that game right now. Yeah, so the terrain is what kind of pulled me in to the game, and it's kind of what has kept me here. So yeah, that's kind of my whole origin.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's great to have you on board with us tonight, because I mean, maps isn't something we've really dived into, and like 50 some episodes of the ToV podcast, and it's like, why haven't we discussed maps ever? And so this is something that I think is important to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be doing other episodes about specific things, especially when it comes to tournament maps in the future. But in a little bit, we are going to start a general discussion, an introduction to maps for those of you out there just getting started. Maybe you saw Heroscape, announce the Renegade or a few years ago, or it's like you had it back in your childhood and now you're diving back into it. Or you could have been playing Heroscape a long time and you just don't have a clue about what the difference is. This is for you tonight to get introduced into it, to discover some links, to really, you'll spend the rest of your life probably going through these things. But information out there for people to have. And we're going to do that in a little bit. But first, I'm going to look at, see what we have in the live chat right now. We got Justin. How you doing tonight? Justin says, let's see, says
Spoon.
He's got my shipping confirmation for Risk 2210 reprint from Renegade. Okay. Also designed by Craig Van Ness. And features the Water Territory Microcorp, which would later also be tied into Heroscape. Oh, that's kind of cool. Played it when I was younger with my brother and his friends, but never had my own copy before that. Well, that's really cool, Justin. You know what you should do, Justin, when you get it, post some photos on the ToV Discord and show it off. Let us see what that looks like, definitely in the future. And so, okay, got that covered with our audience. Anyway, welcome everybody tonight. And those of you who might not be seeing us, might be listening to us on the podcast audio sphere, I always got to give a shout out to everybody, because that community keeps on growing as well. Every time we put out a podcast, it's just like more and more people show up there. So shout out to everybody who's just listening to us via audio and doesn't want to see our faces. That's fine. We're cool with that.
Understandable.
Yes, actually, yeah, that is quite so. And so, but we're glad you're all here listening to us after the fact. But right now, we are going to get into some comments from the last ToV podcast, and there's only a few. And here, I'm going to bring these up real quick. I'm going to do the special thing to where all of us can see this at the same time. Just need a few minutes in order to get the right buttons here. Actually, okay, wrong button. I need to do this button, the share your screen button.
Push the button, Kronk. Wrong button.
Pull the lever, Kronk. Wrong lever. Why do we even have that lever? Okay, get this. No. Okay, so I have that up. So I need to get that, and I get that, and then this, and then this, and there it is.
Bada bing.
We just did that. That looks good.
Bada bing. Okay, so first comment we're gonna look at real quick is from Son of Odin JJ himself. 9442 says, missed out on the stream last night because of some life craziness, but I'm gonna watch this off and on when I have a chance today. Excited for some classic lore, okay? Because last Heroscape, we usually dive into lore quite a bit, and we had some fun with our lore master Jeremy, going through some Thorman's journals. So, and I think this is a big shout out to anybody who like can't get on the stream right away. I mean, this stuff will always be on the live tab whenever we do a live show, for anybody to listen to or watch, as well as after the fact on Spotify and others like that. So if you can't make it live, it's no big
Dungeon.
Yeah, dungeon.
Dungeon.
Okay.
2 years dungeon.
Josiah is telling the audience how I really feel about it. He was trying to be nice, and now he's just revealing everything. Okay, yes, all of you go back to your cave. But no, it's fine. All right. Thank you, JJ, for that comment. And then we have the Elysium himself. And this was really a cool thing that happened. The last ToV podcast, we gave a shout out for a charity that Jeremy was promoting, and I think it was like a day or two after he met that goal. So he's going to get that special looking dice that kind of looks like the wellspring water type of how would I put it, like the reflections. It was sparkly, very, very, very sparkly. But it says here that the Elysium says, being able to voice Vidar again after 8 years. I hope I did my inspiration line well. You know, Jeremy, not only did he do that, he did a very good representation of Cyprian Essenwine too, towards like now he's like in my list of the running for it. If there's going to be Cyprian Essenwine as a villain in the future for ToV, he's in the running for that now, because that was good representation. Said, wanted to update the viewers too that I have raised $102 through Extra Life so far after the episode, so thank you. And I don't have a link in the description below, but go to the last podcast, that'd be podcast episode number 53, and go links below on that one to look up that charity. And because I think this is a year-long thing, and go ahead and help Jeremy out, try and meet more of those goals. It's for Children's Hospital, so it's a really good cause, and basically the nerds get nerdy prizes, which is always fun to get. So no, thank you, Jeremy, for that comment. And then last but not least, even though I don't know who this person is, Garanex is, and Joe is like putting his hand over his head like, oh, we still going?
No, I am looking at something completely different here.
Okay.
Totally Heroscape related, actually.
Okay.
But go ahead. I'll explain later.
Okay. Garanex says, Vidar was always more willing to do what it takes to survive. Having started out allied with Utgar and then some of the units like Q9 and Sudima. You know, Vidar, or Vidar, no matter how you say it, this Valkyrie General really is a unique one because it's more of like a mechanically minded type individual. And I almost imagine, I know it's not in the classic lore, but I almost imagine Vidar as being like half mechanical, half Curie anyway. Like he's kind of like integrated himself to kind of be that way, at least in my own mind, you know. But I know he represents a balance that's like not good or bad, but kind of like in a grayish area within the lore. So yeah, Vidar is always a general that intrigued me, as well as the miniatures behind him, like his armies behind him. Any thoughts on this this channel, guys?
Vidar is my least favorite units, but my most favorite general lore, if that makes sense. Like I don't like facing against anything he summons because they're all vicious and cold and uncompassionate in the battlefield.
I feel the same way. I love all the Vidar units, but I am an Ular main.
Ular!
Ular / Valkyrie stan until the end. But yeah, Vidar, I love playing Vidar units. Shout out to Major Q10.
Exactly. And yeah, so that's all we really have to say about that. Thank you, Garen X. I know, and anybody who doesn't know the joke, yeah, I know who he is. It's Paul. Thank you so much. And that is the comments for tonight. So I'm going to stop the sharing. Does the sharing stop? Yes, the sharing must stop. And I'm going to catch up with some more of the chats here on the live chats here. It says, Exala says, Jeremy as Vidar was totally awesome. Yes. And Justin says, did any of you watch the most recent Adventure Together games stream? I did a little bit. Yes, I did. I like some of the updates that they're going to have, especially they hinted, and I might know more about this, but I'm not going to say anything. They hinted at a digital virtual map builder for the source terrain system. So, and it's something that they say that they're in the very, very entry level, like alpha like stage on it, but they are starting to work with it. They have a developer working on it, had him on the stream, and so that's one of the cool things that they were doing on that stream.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I could see that working out well for Heroscape map makers as well.
Yeah, for not getting.
I mean, I would say as of right now, at least for Adventure Togethers and the oh my god, what do they call the terrain again? I forgot.
Source tiles.
Source. Is the Warmonium map builder, because it's literally, like, to me, in my mind, like 1-to-1 practically. Yeah. It's very, very similar. So
it is.
Honestly, at this point, you can just use that to build at least source maps. Definitely not Heroscape maps. It's a little wonky for that, but yeah, I'm still waiting for Warmonium updates. I want more terrain updates for Warmonium.
As far as I know, because I keep in contact with some of the developers from Warmonium, something should be happening sometime this year. So we might.
Yeah, because I know they've been very busy going to different conventions, showing off the game. That I've been following.
Yeah, they've been busy. So maybe we'll find out something from them. We might have them on, or I might have them on just a regular live stream sometime talking about Warmonium. But I know that they're doing some things behind the scenes.
They're cooking, which I love.
They be cooking with gas. They're cooking with gas and grease and fire. Yeah, just all the cylinders come out. Anyway, Joe, so what were you giggling about?
So there's a post. I had no idea. I haven't done a lot of research in a while for different Heroscape community stuff. But I was looking at the maps thread, and because I'm looking for. There is a set of rules that majority of the Heroscape community map makers follow. It's like a 10-rule thing, and I was looking for that exact thread. But I found that there's a thread for a specific map called Highways and Dieways, and there is a lot of them. I think are trying to improve on the format. Highways and Dieways is a very infamous map for having a weird start zone. There's water in front of it. It takes forever. There's only like one bridge to go from the 124 to cross over onto the mainland. But there is some really just like very jokey, memey like versions. There's one that was it was all, instead of all the road being road, it was all water tiles, and I just
yeah, instead of highways and dieways, that one's leakways and creekways, which
I didn't know. That stuff was great.
Oh dear.
It's a classic map thread. So many good Highway and Dieways remakes. My buddy Rye Guy actually had one that he made called Iceways and Sliceways, and it's like two ice terrain maps and then like a castle map. It's so bad, but it's so good.
Now, I do have an actual housekeeping question for anybody there on the live chat when it comes to, because I'm just noticing at my levels now, do my levels sound the same? Because I know sometimes my computer adjusts internally my microphone levels without me knowing it. So I'm just checking to make sure, is my voice volume the same as everybody else's, or is it a little bit lower? Do I need to check, like do a mic check for myself before we get into the main part of the stream? If someone can just let me know. I know I have a soft voice anyway, but as long as it's almost equal, then I'm okay. But if it's kind of low, I want to make sure that it's a little bit higher and do those internal levels of check before we get started with the main part of the stream.
Yeah, because if we have to do any like, any redo tests, if we all have to sing something, because I'm pretty sure no one's pressed that button yet for Ryan to sing. I'm sure I have enough points.
It happened once.
It did happen once.
It was pretty cool.
I wasn't there for it. Wow.
And Ryan, I have the live stream pulled up now. You sound good. Maybe just a tad bit soft, a couple decibels lower, but I mean you're still hearable.
Soft. Okay. Hexile says a little lower, but as long as it's not too low, I think we should be okay. But that kind of worries me a little bit. Let me just give this a quick check. Here's what I'm going to do. Okay, talk amongst yourselves. You might see the screen in front of you a little bit wonky, but I should be able to bring this up without giving away my control panel to everybody. I'm just I'm going to move this over. Okay, talk amongst yourselves.
So sure, I got your Gothlock printed out for you. I'll get that for ScapeCon for you.
I'm so excited for that. I've got some Valkyrie order markers coming in the mail for me soon, so I'm gonna find a way to use put Gothlock to good use at ScapeCon, I think.
Yeah, I mean, since you keep on beating me with your Death Chaser army, I figure it's just might as well reward you for that. Right?
Well, don't play me in round 1 of this new OST season, because you're gonna get beat again by Death Chasers.
Probably.
If you're playing in that season, I don't know if you are or not, but
I don't know if I'll do the season. I'm pretty packed now, so unfortunately, but I would like to try it out. That's a good question. Are the seasons just a day, or is it kind of like a period of time?
It's one game every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So you have a lot of time to get your games in, but I mean, if you're like me playing 2 or 3 tournaments, online tournaments, simultaneously, it can feel a lot busier than it is. But we find our time. I also don't have kids, so there's that.
And speaking of Death Chasers, what I did last Wednesday is I had Death Chasers up against Wolves, and they completely slaughtered them. Of course, my map building wasn't that great either. But Death Chasers are really, they are formidable. They are formidable.
I keep on losing them. I'm about to turn into a samurai Counter-Strike army because of them so much. Like, I am
How do we beat
well, their normal attacks might actually do something into Death Knights.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad idea.
I'm collecting
Death
I'm
Knights,
trying to get those two.
Death Chasers are probably my favorite common squad in all of Heroscape. They're just so awesome. And I have 6 squads of them, so
I would understand that then.
There's that.
All right. How about I think my levels are okay, it's just my voice is soft, so I think we'll be all right. So how about we get started with the main discussion of this podcast, which is Map Making 101. Because this is something I'm very, very clueless about. But let's start it this way. Okay, when I started Tales of Valhalla: The Aftermath Chronicles, I was building maps from a perspective of someone who was looking at aesthetics how things would look in front of the camera. And the great thing about Heroscape Terrain is that it looks great anyway. You know, you don't have to really do any painting. You don't have to do any like printing. You don't have to take anything from like from a mom and pop like handcraft store or anything and add it on. It looks good as is. Just build it, take some photos, and you're all set. And so when I started building these type of maps for visual appearances, one of the great tools that I found to really help me instead of like just building things on the fly was I found Virtualscape. And that allowed me to build maps and spend a lot of time on the virtual side of things. So I wasn't wasting time trying to figure out what sets I needed to build. Everything was already done. So that was a great thing for me. So I think one of the things that we should start with first when it comes to map making is the Virtualscape. And Jack, as well as like explain to us a little bit about Virtualscape and how did you get introduced into the map making side of things? Because at the beginning of the podcast, you described how you got into Heroscape. How did you get into map making, and was Virtualscape a part of it? Because I'm thinking it kind of was. And tell us a little bit about that.
Definitely. I think the day that I joined Heroscapers is when I started my map thread. So I was already making maps before I joined Heroscapers. I found Virtualscape on the site and just wanted to start making maps for my friends. And yeah, that's, you know, it's the best app that we have right now to make Heroscape maps and to, you know, make building instructions and everything. You know, you're talking about how you're wanting Warmonium to get an update. Well, we're still rocking Virtualscape from 2009.
Actually, I have a tab right here on my computer. I think it's kind of like in French, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all in French. Yeah. I mean, you can find it in English, but it is made by someone that is French. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I have that. Yeah. So that's how it pops up on my screen when I need to use it.
Yeah. I have the English version now, but I did have a laptop that just had the French version, so I was like rocking French for a bit, brushing up for my classes and stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty useful tool for anybody wanting to get into map making, as old as it is. It's got all the terrain that is out currently for Heroscape. You know, in the next however many months it is, 4 months, 3 months. We'll see if Renegade wants to make a map builder by then. But right now you've got everything you need. I don't know if I could pull up. I actually have Virtualscape open.
Do you want to share it on the screen?
Yeah, let me see.
I don't know if I need to give permission for that, but I will if I need to. Oh, okay, no, there's.
Let's see.
All right, let me bring it up.
Y'all seeing that? So this is my my file for Tigris, my most recent map. You've got, you know, all your terrain here on the left side. You know, if you want volcano stuff, you got your volcano stuff. You want, you know, Rise of the Valkyrie, here's all your Rise of the Valkyrie terrain, dungeon, etc. You know, if you want to see your map in 3D, you go over here.
The gold bars.
Click on the gold bars, and then look, you got a map. You got a map.
The cool thing with this app, it's very user friendly. You know, it doesn't take too long to figure out how everything goes. Even if you don't read instructions or anything, it's pretty easy to figure out what to do.
Yes, it's very you know, hands on, like very obvious what it is. Like you just place your tiles down, and you know, get to placing, and you can build maps. Oops, here's my virtualscape is it's crashing. This happens a lot because, especially if I have bigger maps on here, which I did have a big map on there. I can reopen it and show y'all what that was. But you can build any maps of any size. You can do a tournament style map, or you can build a big map. Let me reshare here. Or you can build a big map like this map. This is Valhalla.
Woo!
A map that I designed.
And I want
for
yeah, look at that.
Wow,
I saw this on Heroscapers.com, and one of the links you showed me, I'm just like, wow, that is like a weekend,
Oh yeah, and my virtualscape hates that map too, so it's crashing yet again. But yeah, you can get a lot of cool stuff on virtualscape. It's very easy to use, very user friendly. I definitely recommend it for anybody wanting to get into map making and sharing your maps to the world.
Absolutely. And I've done a lot of live streams, building the terrain sets for scenes for Tales of Hell that I would use using virtualscape. So I've done a lot of streams for that. And yeah, it's a good tool, good resource to just get familiar with the terrain, and to learn to build with it for sure. So yeah, love virtualscape. And anything. Oh, wait a second, and we have. Hello, there is Jason. How you doing tonight, Jason?
There he is.
Hello, everybody. Jumping in late, just because. Why not?
Why not? And we are talking a little bit about virtualscape, getting started in the map making process. Anything you want to say about virtualscape, Jason?
I'm good right at the moment.
Okay. Give me a moment. That was an awkward pause. Okay. When it comes to virtualscape, Jack, I said link description below if anybody wants to check these out, because I have all the links there. But I guess my question would be, to close off with virtualscape, what would be a recommended way to start using it? Just build something and see what happens, or should you do find some guidelines via Heroscapers? What do you think you should do?
I think virtualscape is for anybody who just likes to make maps, whether that's competitive or for personal play and just playing with your friends. So do whatever you want with that application. You said you had a link for it in your in the show. Okay.
Yeah, in the show notes on YouTube. For sure, and on Spotify too. Just put the show notes there. So
yeah, you download virtualscape, preferably the English version if you're just starting off, and yeah, do what you want. If you're looking to make competitive maps, there's a lot of stuff I'm sure we could get into on how to make those maps competitive. But if you're just starting out, do whatever you want. Go wild.
I have a question. So if you were for quality of life improvements or things you would change for Virtualscape 2.0 or Renegade's map making program, if they ever designed that, what would be some key or important aspects?
We'll make a map, an application that doesn't crash on you like it did for me. But a few things that I would like, and I have a list somewhere. It's not on me. But there are some things that I would love for a Virtualscape 2.0 to have, and that's designing in 3D. Right now, you can only design in the layer by layer section. I would also like a way to bring in custom terrain. There is technically an option for that on Virtualscape, but it's not real. You can really only retexture stuff. There's so those two things, and then I'm linking on the third thing. Oh, an undo button. An undo button would be awesome. Because if you are not familiar with Virtualscape, it's just there's no undo, there's no Control Z, no Control Y or anything. That would be 3 very simple things that you could do to make that application a whole lot better. But yeah.
Okay. The more it's sounds like it's got a lot of good bones. It just needs some updates and some modernization.
Definitely. I mean, like I said, 2009. So
yeah. I mean, here's one. Here's an update that you need to have is be able to select all of the tiles that you want for a certain space, and they be able to press one button and say, okay, now I want all these tiles to go here. You know, be able to just, like, for example, start zones. So instead of like clicking in each individual start zone, you can just kind of like control select them all and then press the one button, and then they all just go in.
Convenience.
you can do a control selection if you like hold control, but I think you still have to, like, you can't fill a space
Right.
like that you're suggesting. Yeah. There's actually a new map program that somebody's working on. It's not confirmed whether or not it'll ever come out. It's called Landscape 20, and it's like a revision of this guy's original map building program that I was not around for when it was originally out. But there's some promising stuff here. I can send you all the thread for this, but it's actually usable on Mac and iOS. If you don't know, the Virtualscape is only available on PC. And he's also trying to do VR map building, which I don't have any use for.
I
but
see that. Oh, that's dope.
it's very interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. So hoping
Oh, he's got
that comes
AR
out.
in this. There's a YouTube video kind of showcasing this.
Sure,
Whoa!
if you went on the VR mapscaping, I feel like we would never see you again. You would just be like the architect, just building everything.
I'd be shuffled off into
where's
like
Joe? Where's Joe? Oh, he still has the VR headset, But he's
I'm
80
building
years old.
Valhalla.
He's 80 years old. Yeah, well, it's a lifetime, event thing.
Yeah.
Yo.
That's nice. And I think one of the things that we'll do is sometime in the future, if there's ever something new that comes out officially or unofficially that replaces Virtualscape, we might have you back on to discuss that. But I think that's a good. This is a good discussion to end for Virtualscape, and definitely check it out. Link in the description below, and look out for anything else that might come newer in the future. But as far as right now is concerned, at this present time, Virtualscape is your best bet to just start building, and it saves you definitely a lot of time instead of just practicing building the stuff physically, for sure. And so let us now dive into this next part and the actual map making. Now, this is the thing that really intrigues me. We're just gonna cover this a little bit tonight, but like, I know there's different types of maps. There's casual play maps to where it's just like whatever you got. Maybe you got like one of the master sets terrains, and you just build whatever comes to your mind. Start stones be damned, and you just play with family, you play with friends, and you have fun with it. So there's that casual element. And then there is an element that we didn't really talk about, but there's like mini maps. Like, I do a lot of mini maps like on the side of my desk here, because that's all I have room for when I do skirmishes. There's also like unique YouTubers who create like mini maps for like maybe like D&D sequences out of Heroscape Terrain, or it could be a Heroscape gameplay, but it's just it's those with limited amount of terrain tiles, and they're very well done. but what we want to look at and explore tonight a little bit is the competitive maps now. Is there, Jack, like a specific rule set and way of doing these? And also, like, I'll bring up this page as well in a second, but is there's obviously a community for this, and link descriptions below, links provided that shows just all the maps that that you can see, like on, I don't have heroscape.org, but I got heroscapers.com, and I'm going to bring that up in a second, and look through those. But if you want to give just like a basic definition on like tournament map making and how you got started with it, and what are some of those like first rules to get in and start, you know, on the ground rolling for those who are just like, say, starting to get interested in doing that type of thing.
Yeah, there's definitely rules that are good to follow when you're first getting into competitive map making. There's a really good article by Big a Bullfrog, and if you guys do another map building podcast, I would heavily recommend having him on.
I'd love to have him. Yeah, I'd
super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Super influential and helpful in the map community. And he has an article that kind of goes through a lot of good tips when designing competitive maps. And I can kind of summarize that and give my own thoughts. But basically, like, when you're making a competitive map, the number one goal is to have a battlefield that creates the smoothest kind of matchups for as many figures in Heroscape as possible. So that means, you know, things like, you probably don't want height in your start zone. Like, you don't want like a level 4 perch that Savaris can just chill on the entire tournament and fire away at you, or else that's gonna cause a lot of frustration and angst in your tournament. So creating maps that, you know, have the smoothest matchups. And there are some units in the game that we particularly keep an eye out for. This includes figures like Raylan, figures like basically any dragon, rats, Death Reavers, and then there are other ones like Blastotrons and Gladiatrons. Trying to think of any VC characters that specifically break maps. None are coming to mind right now, but
well,
just like
kind of describe that. What does it mean by breaking maps for a Heroscape miniature? Like, explain some of that process.
Yeah. So like, when a figure breaks a map, it means that they can easily set up in a spot on the map that can basically grant the player an auto win. If your map has, similarly to the Savaris example I gave, if your map has like a single perch where Raylan can chill on behind a wall of like figures, then where it's very difficult to take her out, where she has 4 or 5 defense if she's next to like a jungle bush, then that would be a map that Raylan breaks. Similarly with like dragons and I guess Q9 to an extent, if you have like a perch that they can get to that is hard to contest, where they can just kind of fly around or just shoot for free from, then that would be a map that those figures who are already really good in the game, that can abuse that map and make for very unfun tournament games.
I found some players local when we kind of met up for, like, they were kind of newer players. They just wanted to play the game. and they wanted to play one of the classic Rise of the Valkyrie scenarios. We made Michael's Tomb, and I had Zelrig, and I never saw them again afterwards.
No, no.
Because I went up on the thing and just blasted everyone in the middle.
You lost some friends that
Yeah,
day.
you're not gonna make friends with Zelrig. Yep. Nope. Nope.
Yeah. Zelrig was a unit that a lot of people worried about back when I started making maps. And Zelrig is still a problem, but he's less of a problem just because people have over time learned how to play around Zelrig.
Mhm.
But like, for example, you don't see a lot of maps where Zelrig can reach your start zone turn 1 and get like, 5 or 6 targets in one shot. You see a map like Sorokold, like right here. This is a redux of an older map called Sirocco by Mad Wookie.
Oh, yeah.
And Zelrig is a 6-move flying figure. Zelrig can Z-bomb the start zone, and that is not what you want. Now, granted, if Zelrig wants to get an optimal Z-bomb, I believe he'd have to get down into Shadow, which would mean that your figures could get to him pretty easily. Or he'd have to take one of these sides and, get just a few off.
Mhm.
But yeah, Zelrig was one of those map-defining units for a long time, and over time, people have kind of been like, okay, well, we kind of know how to play around Zelrig. We just space out in the start zone, and I think also having figure limits become a big thing in like Heroscape tournaments has changed that as well. I wasn't really around when Zelrig was a big problem, but yeah, he's definitely one of those figures that you have to consider. And then you have like rats, right? That that are just, they're screening units. They're meant to clog up the board and prevent you from getting to whatever your opponent doesn't want you to hit. So that could be figures like Krav Maga agents, Q9, Q10, or even Raylan, or any of that combination. So you don't want like maps that have a lot of one space choke points. So maps, castle maps are a good example of that, or ×2 road maps. If you want to scroll to Viney Pines here, so you'll notice that there are not a whole lot of one space gaps, but like in between those two trees, where I'm calling myself out here for this, that spot right there could be a really good spot for a rat to close off that whole entire access point and engage a figure that's trying to maybe get around to something in the start zone. If you can put a rat somewhere that is a really important part of the map to prevent your opponent's progress, then that could be a map that rats could break. That also goes into Biga's rule number 9: are there too many choke points? And choke points just they're not great for a whole lot of competitive maps. You want ease of movement for your armies, especially. I try to keep in mind like 4-move units, and now granted, like there's not a lot of great 4-move units. Knights are technically 4-move, but if you're playing them in tournament, you usually have Gilbert, so they're usually like 5 or 6 or 7-move in reality. But you want to keep in mind like units in the game that have a hard time with development. So like and keeping that balance in mind. So like I try to keep in mind the difference between like figures that can fly and figures that can't fly. How easy is it for one figure with flying to get to a point in the map versus a figure with the same amount of movement that doesn't have flying? So usually you see a gradual shift, like in levels. It's pretty smooth. Like there are some maps like my maps to Coven that are just kind of like, it's kind of like a hill, and yeah, you have some level 4 spots, but you have spots where a 5 move unit can get to level 3, or flying figures, they can get to level 4, but it's lava.
Right.
Sechevon is one of my, or Stakhaven is one of my favorite maps of yours I played on for sure.
I like it.
Thank you.
Look at
Thank
that.
you.
And it actually like ties into a comment that Hexala is saying. Joe, do you want to ask about this, about symmetry?
Because obviously when you build maps, especially for competitive play, they're asymmetrical, either vertically or horizontally. And Hexala wants to know what your thoughts are on asymmetrical tournament maps.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of asymmetrical tournament maps. There are some out there, and I've tried my hand at that. None that I've been happy with. But asymmetrical maps are things that I would like to see more of in Heroscape. Asymmetrical competitive maps. Really, right now, the only asymmetrical maps that come to mind are Tikala Sunrise, which is a Wargrounds Escape map.
Is it what? Which one?
It's a Wargrounds Escape map. It was also in the Battlefields of Valhalla. But that is kind of like the premier asymmetrical map. It's been around forever. And then there is Subduction by Ulysses. That is a newer map that was actually made during a map contest hosted by Mega Silver. And then,
Let me see if I can.
Sorry if I'm going too fast here.
No. I want to bring it up real quick if I can find it.
Well, Tikala Sunrise, I'm looking at it. It looks
okay. There's Subduction here. Look, and that's actually a pretty intense map too.
What was the other one? Subjective.
Subduction.
Here, hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to bring this up, and here, let's just take a look at this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here for this, but yeah, it's
and it's actually, if you'll notice,
here,
it's actually fairly symmetrical. It's very slightly asymmetrical, but there is some asymmetry in there.
I see it. Yeah.
And that's kind of that's kind of like what a lot of asymmetrical tournament maps end up looking like, where it's fairly symmetrical, but it's still
almost mirrored.
Yeah, there's still some asymmetry going on. Tikala Sunrise, like I said, it's probably the most
excuse me.
Probably like the top tier example of like
what that one?
That is a map by GameBear, and it's also in the Wargrounds Escape.
Okay.
And it is definitely one of the best tournament asymmetrical maps that we have out there. Okay. But you'll look at it and you'll see that it's actually fairly symmetrical to some degree.
What was it called again?
Tikala Sunrise.
Okay.
If you're searching, Ryan, if you're just searching up on Heroscapers, I would recommend going to the .org and going to maps and typing it in. It's a lot quicker.
Yes, sir. Okay. Keep on talking.
While you're pulling that up, it is. I think it's really interesting, kind of coming from playing the game as a map builder. I think you really kind of are able to pinpoint on kind of the inner mechanisms of what makes a Heroscape, a competitive Heroscape game kind of work. You're talking about movement and placement and height and all these kind of things that are very important aspects to someone playing at a competitive level. So I think you kind of get this weird insight into it, like almost like the map is a neutral player in the game almost, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of my goal as a map maker. I mean, obviously, I want a map that I want all my maps to be unique and provide interesting gameplay, but also I want them to be fair. And yeah, here's to Call of Sunrise.
Yeah.
There is asymmetry there, but it is very very slight. And it's a good map. It's kind of a big map. So I'd recommend, if you're playing on it, to play with a lot of figures for those big fun battles.
Get some Myro on that thing.
Oh yeah, some Drudge. Oh, that, or it could be a fun scenario map too, where you have like the hive in the center and all that. But yeah, no, I think the goal for most map makers, at least nowadays, is to have maps that are both dynamic but fair. That's what I try to do. That's what a lot of modern map makers try to do. There are some people that are pushing the boundary, and I try to do that as well. But yeah, you want your maps to. You don't want somebody leaving your map thinking, "Oh, that map just lost me the game." Like, that is
Not
kind
that
of the
has never happened before.
There's definitely been people that have cursed my maps before. Not my fault, but maybe the glyphs' faults.
Yeah,
no,
glyphs.
I mean, yeah, it's always the glyphs' fault.
Weddick!
Yep.
Yeah. It's yeah. The map making is both it's very technical, but it's also like you also have to take the aesthetics in mind as well. If we want to get into that, maybe. But
in 1 second, because I do have another question popping up in the chat, and this comes from Rowan, asking if you have any advice for someone, because this can be a lot of people, with very limited terrain, trying to build maps. What would you recommend doing when it comes to that?
If you're looking to like build your own maps, I would definitely suggest downloading Virtualscape if you have a PC. And using your map restrictions. Virtualscape allows you to type in, what your restrictions are, and you can kind of experiment from there. If you have like a full Rise of the Valkyrie like terrain set, or like any of the master sets really, there are a lot of great maps out there that use like a single Rise of the Valkyrie map, or Valkyrie terrain set, but definitely try to experiment on Virtualscape with whatever you have. A lot of competitive maps, if you're getting into competitive map making, they do go by there usually are stricter terrain requirements. Usually you only take terrain from X amount of master sets and X amount of expansion sets. So like Takala Sunrise only uses Swarm of the Morrow and Takala Jungle. And that's actually a pretty light combination of terrain. Obviously Takala Jungle is expensive, but if you have custom Takala Jungle terrain like I have, or
soon be coming out too.
Yep, there's new jungle terrain coming out in a few months. You could build that map. But yeah, Virtualscape is great for finding out what your limits are. Or you could do what I did when I first started playing with Heroscape Terrain, just throw whatever together and don't worry about competitive viability.
Yeah. It's a good thing to build yourself up towards. It's like you're not going to get perfection right off the bat, but as long as it's something you're building towards, if you want to cultivate and craft that part in your mind and in your creative endeavors, for sure.
I think abstraction of virtualscape is really probably helpful if you're wanting to plan a map out. My problem, I have the exact opposite problem. I have too much terrain. You know, I get like a kid building Legos. I just want to build a little, you know, little map, little 2-player map. Let's just have a game in. I'm like, oh wait, let's add this cool feature over here. Let's add a little waterfall going into it.
It's
You know,
absolutely bigger
and
than you have this.
Yeah.
yeah.
Rogue, you should make that map and send a picture of it to
Oh
me
my
because
I probably could.
Yeah.
I cannot make this map with my terrain. I do not have enough terrain to build this.
It's
So
very nice.
I think it has helped me in the fact that I am very utilitarian with the terrain that I have. And probably why I got into competitive map making, because the terrain restrictions are usually so limited. Usually you don't even have like, there's not a single competitive map that I've played on that uses ×2 Rise of the Valkyrie, for example.
Mhm.
It's just too much terrain.
Mhm.
But there's so many good maps that use 1 Rise or 1 Rise and like ×1 expansion. And that's like hours of possibilities with and multiple games that you can play with, you know, that same terrain limit. So yeah, there's countless possibilities that you can do there.
Endless combinations, really. Even if you only have a limited amount of terrain for that.
Yeah, if I might touch on that with talking about limited terrain, Heroscape.org still for me is one of the best websites. So if you go to maps, you could actually type in what master sets you have or expansions you have, and we'll show you, you know, what competitive tournament maps you can build.
Yeah.
And
It's
obviously,
really nice.
if I just plug in to be like 1 or 2 Rise of the Valkyries and a Swarm of Tomorrow,
Terrain available.
you know, there are at least 8 or more maps you can pick from to build.
Heroscape.org is definitely a wonderful. I have never even clicked the maps tab. So yeah, this is really cool.
It's a super useful tool, not only to find what maps to build, but you know, when you go find a map to build and you finally play on it, you can kind of understand of why it's built the way it is. I know when I first went into the Heroscape, you know, community and was building maps and wanted to share the maps that I've made, and I joined a tournament, a contest. All the different groups hold contests. I mean, they haven't held one in a while. The last one I think was for AOA. You know, back during the HasLab campaign. But even so, like, you know, I had joined the contest and submitted a map, or at least a couple maps or whatever. And I got a lot of different, you know, feedback, and I'm like, okay. You know, I'm starting to learn and construct. I'm like, I'm very visual. Like, I'm trying to make a beautiful map that's also functional. And so there are some features, like, for example, like stacking castles. There's no reason to ever stack castles, but I was like, I wanted to make a city map that where you felt like when you play this map, you felt like you were in the middle of a city and you're on the street. And so I wanted to stack castles, and they were like, nah, there's no reason for that. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the immersion, though. Like, if you just put one level of castles, you know, you're like, okay, it's just a castle. But you stack it, and you go, oh. At least for me, that's what it was. But it was a huge learning experience. And I think eventually, if you do study enough of these maps, you know, like a couple of puddles. I play every so often. I really like that map. It's a good pyramid map, triangle, and I think that's an ARV. Yeah, it's an ARV map. I love the ARV, and a couple months ago, whatever, I was like, wait a minute, I've never seen any of these maps at tournaments, and I don't know why they're never selected. And I play a lot of ARV maps because they have the ARV, the Architect's Realms of Valhalla. They actually have a workshop thread where you can they help you construct maps, which is super useful. They'll give you'll upload your map. They'll give you tips. They'll give you, you know, tricks on how to position it. They won't tell you what to do, but they'll give you they'll ask you specific questions on how for you to think on how to approach a certain problem. and I think that's super super useful.
Well, the ARV is actually part of what got me into making maps. Because I was watching Sir Heroscape videos, and I was like, oh, this is the best game ever, and like, oh, there's like a community out there that cares about map making. And the ARV was like really popping off when I first joined Heroscapers. Um, and I had one of my maps inducted into the ARV. Another map of mine like won a contest. It was like the 3 multiplayer frenzy one. But the ARV was really fundamental in bringing me into the map building world. And unfortunately, they haven't really done a whole lot in the past couple of years.
Last one was the Marble Scrolls, which is actually the last that was the contest that I submitted for.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're still working on stuff behind the scenes. But even on some of like the ARV maps, you can kind of see the age on some of them, including my map that got inducted into the ARV. I have my map Grounds of Astra it was one of the first maps that I made, and I'm very grateful for it to have been inducted in there, but it doesn't get a lot of tournament play because the map making meta has shifted a lot since then. And another person that I think you guys should definitely have on at some point is Flash 19. I think he's a instrumental part of that shift in map making. He's kind of like the new architect. I think his Heroscape tag is the Frank Lloyd Wright of cartography or something like that. And he really changed the game with map making, and that maybe goes a little bit into the history side of maps and stuff like that. But if you want to find like the best maps nowadays, you go to the Wargrounds Escape. The Wargrounds Escape, they have
and before we dive, I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we dive into that, just explain, because we're saying the acronym ARV, but just explain a little bit what that means for a second. Then we'll go into the next acronym of map making as well. But just to the audience who might be listening to this just via audio, I just want to give them a little bit of detail what ARV means before we move on to the next one, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. The ARV, the Architects of the Realms of Valhalla, they are a map making group that has hosted numerous tournaments in the past, trying to collect new and viable tournament maps for the Heroscape scene. I'm not sure how many maps how many contests they had throughout the years, but they were very regular in their contests, and like I said, very instrumental in getting me involved. But they would basically host these contests. People would vote on which map was their favorite, and afterwards they would review all the maps, give feedback, and induct X amount of maps into the Architects of the Realms of Valhalla as tournament-worthy maps. Not saying that the ones that didn't get selected for those the tournament viability stats, whatever. Not that those aren't playable maps, but these were the best maps that came from those competitions.
The best, basically. Was considered the best. And this was founded by Sir Heroscape?
Yes, Sir Heroscape, and I can't remember the exact list of judges, but I know Big Bullfrog was a part of it. So is Flash. I know that Sheep was a part of it as well. Heroscaper 2010 is what he used to go by. But yeah, these are all really good maps, and maybe some of them are a little bit more dated than others, mine included. But they are still, I think, pretty decent maps, and you probably won't go wrong with playing on them.
All right. Well, let's see here. The next acronym then, and let me get this here. WOS, right? War Grounds of Scape. Now, this is a more actually no, this one has been, I think this one's older. Looks like Doc set this one up 2015, correct?
Yes and no. So the War Grounds of Scape was a predecessor of the Architects of the Realms of Valhalla, but it went dormant after the first 3 inductions into the War Grounds Escape, and then was resurrected recently with the help of Mike OEAO and other members of the mapmaking community, Doc included, obviously. And since then, the War Grounds Escape has kind of been the I guess the group that has really stepped up and provided a showcase for the best tournament maps that we have, and their process is a little bit different from the ARV.
Just bring up that seemed interesting. This one.
Yeah, Venom is an ARV, or is a War Grounds Escape map. It's also an ARV map, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I think it is. But Venom, yeah. So basically, like War Grounds Escape, anyone can nominate a map to the War Grounds Escape. It doesn't have to go through a contest beforehand and all that. It's basically whoever wants to submit a map can. The only qualifications a submission has to make is that it has to have appeared in 2 competitive tournaments with 6 or more players. It has to. It doesn't. There's no strict terrain requirements, but there are, conventions that us mapmakers follow.
Now, what do you mean by strict restrictions? Are you talking about like you can't only just use, let's say, a Rise of the Valkyrie, Swarm of the Marrow, and Forgotten Forest? Like you can just use anything from any terrain as long as it, follows a certain set of rules.
Well, you still have to. You can't just have like a map that's completely like sand from like from your entire collection. You have to follow the restrictions of like, however you have to use sets. You can't like split up your pieces and all that stuff.
Okay.
But the only other restrictions really are that you have to have a 24 hex start zone, and if the map contains glyphs, I'm just reading off of their guidelines. If the map contains glyphs, it may designate random glyphs, or it may stipulate specific glyphs. Please specify whether treasure glyphs or power glyphs are intended. Release C3V glyphs may be used. And yeah, the War Grounds Escape, they are still active and they're still, inducting maps. I think the most recent induction was Odin Wept. And I played on that map. It's an awesome map. There's a lot of cool stuff in the War Grounds Escape, and you can't go wrong with basically any maps here. They all provide, interesting gameplay, and even the ones that are, I mean, I have my own opinions about maps because that's map makers in a nutshell. We all have our own opinions about what makes a map a good map.
What's a hot take? What's a hot take you have? What like is it a design? Is it a design thing? Is it like a core concept? It's like I don't like 24s. I wish they were 18. I wish they were 34.
Well, there are things that I have my own like specific rules on top of like the kind of general rules that a lot of map makers follow. One of my pet peeves is like a map where the glyphs are not the same distance from each other from both start zones. That's it's not a hard rule, but like if a map has a glyph that's 7 spaces away from one end of the start zone and 8 spaces away on the other, it's like it just kind of gets under my skin.
You're talking about it has to be balanced, as all things should be.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And I mean,
okay.
you can get away with it with like bilaterally symmetrical maps.
Yeah.
Maps that are not like Odin Wept, where it's like it's symmetrical down the middle of the map.
Right. It's horizontally. I believe that's what it is.
Yes. But yeah, no, the Warground Escape, they all have it's all great maps. I did nominate a map from the Warground Escape for removal. But
interesting.
I did not.
Conflict.
I don't want to.
Was it Takala Sunrise?
It was not. It was and I'm not saying this is not a map that if you put it in a tournament setting, it would be a bad map to play on. I just, in my opinion, believe that it was not like a best of the best of modern maps. I would still play on it, but it's Fulcrum by Dignan, and
that old chestnut.
Fulcrum's a very unique map, and I do think that.
Actually, I kind of like it.
Fulcrum. I like all renditions of Fulcrum.
Although I can see what you mean by, because you're talking about bottlenecks. There's a very obvious bottleneck here.
Yeah, that's the game that you're playing right there. That is the game that you're playing right there. You're fighting for that.
Yep.
Fulcrum is a very unconventional competitive map, and I do love that about it. Dignan is one of the most like historic and influential map makers out there, and Fulcrum has been a long time staple of the map making community. It's a good map. I didn't think that it was one of the best of the best, but so
Fulcrum seems like a really good scenario map, maybe not a competitive play map. Just looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be. It is a fast map, and it's one of the only competitive maps that does not have glyphs on it. So there's definitely some things that you can take from this, where like the rules that I mentioned earlier on. You can look at a map like Fulcrum, and you can see how a great designer like Dignan was able to kind of break a lot of those rules. I mean, like I said, I did nominate it for removal, but I still think that it'll see a lot of tournament play. It's just one of those, it's like Highways and Dieways. It's like one of those maps that just kind of will always be a staple.
And I still like it, but I just like, based on the knowledge that I've learned in this past hour, I'm just like, wait a second, bottleneck, and that just because I wouldn't even have thought about that before we got started with this, but now they've been
Zelwick or Raylan would love this map too.
A lot of for sure.
Some perches. There's some perches.
Would there be any like easy changes to the map you would make to make it better? Or you think it's just?
That's a good question. Actually, Vidar and I did come up with a version of Fulcrum. For the last DC tournament.
Is it out there somewhere?
It is. If you go to Vidar's thread, it is a slight update.
Is it just on Heroscapers?
It is on Vidar's map thread. I can send it to you.
I should be able to. Here, hold on a second. I just gotta look at the views.
Well, let me see if it's on .org, because
Okay.
I believe the map images are all broken on Vidar's map thread.
Yeah,
Are there
possibly,
any
yeah.
units coming from AOA that's going to kind of give concern, or like I could see like a Washia being like something mapmakers have to start paying attention to.
Washia might be a bit of a problem. Like, I don't think that there will be many considerations given to current figures that aren't already given to figures that do things that are similar to like a Washia or Zenithrax, for example. Like, I think rats kind of do the same thing as a Washia in a way. But it'll be interesting to see how they affect map making. You know, nobody's really putting water at level 4, but they certainly won't be doing that now. There was actually an AOA allowed. There was an OHS season that's currently in playoffs, where they allowed AOA units to be played in, and a lot of the AOA figures are like Awashia is one of the better AOA figures from that tournament, and seeing her results, but none of them break the game quite like Aurelin or Death Reavers. They are very well balanced units, and those designs, you know, were created by some of the best custom designers in the community. So they definitely considered all the problematic things that they could do. So
what was the name of the map we were looking for? Because I like
It's not dark or hot fulcrum.
It is not. In fact, it's on Vidar's map thread. Let me send this to you, Ryan.
Okay. I will say dark fulcrum is probably in my one of my favorite versions of it.
We can't show hot fulcrum on stream. I'm sorry.
I mean, look, I think hot fulcrum. I think I really love the layout for it, but yeah, the color combos and the thematics of it, make me want to vomit. So that's a whole different thing. But I would love to rework this with different thematics. I do really enjoy the format for this.
Yeah, they need to make a like a fulcrum family tree thread.
Did you send it to me, Jack, or are you sending it to me?
I posted it in the Discord chat. It's on Vidar's map thread, and you'll probably have to pull up his PDF, the PDF instructions for the map, because his images are down.
Yeah, I see that. On the chat, in our chat room, basically.
Yeah.
Correct.
You got to right click on it. Yeah. Mars Edition, I see it.
No, okay, no, I see. Okay, there we go.
Because Jack, I think you were there for that. Or
bring this.
I remember us talking at ScapeCon East.
Okay,
and I remember kind of like peeking in on this conversation of you guys talking about where to put the 3 hex and how to rearrange the one Takala bush, and it was just like this small corner, and it was like 4 different renditions. Well, we could put it here and put this here and put it with that. Just the 3 hex. You said
it was fulcrum, right?
Yeah, it's on the bottom.
Yeah,
it's thermal or fulcrum Mars edition.
Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, there, we can just bring this up like that. All right. Okay, so
yeah.
So what's the difference for this one?
So
you can't tell. It's so obvious.
Yeah. So the main differences here, and I really don't want to. I don't mean to talk down on the OG Fulcrum so much, but one of the biggest problems about original Fulcrum is that level 3 hex right outside of the start zone. If you look at the original Fulcrum, you'll notice that there is a bush next to that level 3 that covers 2 of those 3 spaces. And that ended up being a very big problem for a lot of ranged armies, because you could just have a pod of 3 figures like 10th Regiment or 4th Mass, just chill up there and shoot at your opponents as they're trying to get to you, and that kind of creates unfun gameplay where you're kind of, you're kind of just shifting through that single lane through the middle. You're kind of conga lining all the way through there just to get to that spot, and then at that point, they have height, so it's really that spot right there is really good for range. It was one of the bigger problems of the map, and also, one of you had mentioned, I think Rogue mentioned that it was good for dragons. Dragons can really just kind of hop up on these rock areas here,
sure.
and hop between these heights, and just kind of shoot at your start zone for free.
Yeah.
Nilfheim, I remember I played a game with Nilfheim on this map during ScapeCon East, and I just had like a free game basically because I was able to plop him there, and any time my opponent made slight progress, they would have to dunk themselves into that water, and I would just get shots of 4 down into those units, and Nilfheim was very safe. So that was a big.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get to, and we talked about dragons being a problem for maps. It is of my opinion that this is one of the easier maps for dragons to abuse.
I can see that. Yeah.
But there are definitely ways to play around it too. This has been a map that's been in the community for years, and people will argue that there are ways to play around that kind of gameplay.
I guess I still like it, but yeah, I can see the little dots, they're just like.
This is where my idea of what makes a good competitive map good kind of maybe differs from some other people in the community. Is like, it's good if like a map creates interesting gameplay, but I want to recommend maps that are that anyone starting out can kind of understand from looking at them, like what you're supposed to do. And if you're playing on Fulcrum against, like, it's your first time playing on Fulcrum and you're playing against somebody who's played on it like a dozen times,
prepare yourself.
Then you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna have a quick loss on that map.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing here. Like, Fulcrum seems like really fun if both players know what to do with Fulcrum. But the map almost takes more of an active role, and you would have to do like a draft style type of army where you're both kind of going in prepared. This is the limitations or what goes wrong with the map, and then it'd be a fun to play around kind of that. But just going in blind, like standard tournament formats just have kind of, bring your army type of deal, and you're just like, oh, I'm a Knight's build. I'm dead. I'm dead.
Yeah, it can be rough for sure.
And I know Hexala has more questions, but I think we have discussed enough tonight just getting started with the map making. So we are going to wind the stream down. There's a lot to discuss, and we could go on forever with this, but we're going to leave that up for a future podcast. But one last question I want to ask Jack, because it brought up with the castles. Is there any competitive map out there that has a lot of castle or castles in it that we can see real quick to wind things down?
Well,
Citadel.
There are a lot of maps that use the castle terrain. There are not a lot of maps that use capped pillars. There's basically no maps in competitive Heroescape that use capped pillars.
My God.
Yeah, because also ladders are very limited. We won't bring that up, but ladders are something that people like to avoid as well. So, cap pillars, ladders, they just try to avoid. We don't talk about ladders. So yeah, no.
But there are a lot of good maps that use castle terrain. They just don't use the cap pillars. some of the
Okay,
maps
just
that come to mind.
yeah, just point something out, and so I can bring in a screen here to
Yeah.
understand.
So one of my favorite personal maps is the Crypt by Flash 19.
Okay. Let me get this. Okay, I'll just put it up here because I'm sure it's on Heroscape.org here.
Yes.
The Crypt. The Crypt. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, see, now that just satisfies my my aesthetically pleasing. Although we can't twirl it around here, but yeah, that's nice.
The Crypt is an old favorite of mine. It doesn't get a lot of play today because it is kind of a cramped map, but it very much. It's a really cool map to see in real life.
Yeah.
And it does give you that feeling of like, oh, you're going into a crypt.
Sure.
And
the claustrophobia of it. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I like it a lot. Joe mentioned one of my maps, Frostclaw Citadel.
Yeah, let's hang on a second. Is it up here on?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll see it. Okay, yeah. There's a nice. I mean, it's not as claustrophobic, but it still is the same idea here.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a map that's got like road tiles to where you can just if you start on it, you can go virtually anywhere. You know, I love that concept.
Yeah, there are a lot of really great fortress maps. I also want to shout out. There's a map by Ulysses called Bayou Blitz that I think is pretty cool. It's not super castle-y, but it does use that.
I don't know how to spell tonight. Okay, there we are. All right. This is more jungly though. This
it is. It's kind of like a sunken kind of fortress vibe.
Okay.
But this is kind of how people use the Fortress of the Arch-Kyrie terrain.
Mm-hmm.
They used to make maps with cap pillars, but then they made Protectors of Ular, and Protectors of Ular love capped pillars.
Everything changed when the Protectors attacked.
And then they tried getting around to it by putting molten lava on top of the capped pillars, and then Molten Claw came out. Who, if you don't know, Molten Claw is a dragon, single hex dragon that has lava resistance. And he has a ranged attack. So no cap pillars in today's modern map meta.
Okay.
Yeah,
hence
that is actually a really
challenge.
interesting point because I have seen a lot of maps where they would cap it with like the lava tiles, which realistically doesn't make any sense. But sure, I'll play with it for game thematics. But yeah, that is true. I have seen a lot like that, and then I guess with the introduction of Molten Claw. Would absolutely break that entire map into two, and so I guess saying no caps, and it's like, you just can't stand on it. It's got those spikes that pigeons can't.
Someone made a 3D model I saw online. Because I hate the uncapped look, just aesthetically. So I probably print a bunch of those off and just put them on from now on.
All right.
I'm definitely used to it at this point, but. Yeah, I get that.
How about just to end it now, because I know we can go on all night about this, and I'm sure we could, and we would, but we'll save more information for other time, because like I said, we'll have to like divvy out and think of other subjects when it comes to map making.
Or we could have the audience tell us what subjects to talk about. Or if we should talk about this again, let us know. Leave and comment. Tell us.
Comments. Tell us, okay, what should we talk about next? What are subjects about map making that we'd like to talk about? There's already nice suggestions in the live chat as well. But go ahead and leave a comment below as well to let us know what you think and what you want, and we'll be sure to have that on the list to discuss in the future. But how about we give final thoughts and wind things down? Since Jack, since you're like kind of the first in my windows here, go ahead and give your thoughts. Shout out to, I guess, your heroscapers.com if you want to. And start us out, winding us down tonight, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and also shout out to all the mothers today. Happy Mother's Day. Thanks for having me on. I could talk about this for hours, and I hope that you guys in the audience want to hear more about it, and maybe bring on new map makers as well. I'm Shurrig on all the Heroscapers stuff on the Discord and the forums. If you want to ever reach out to me about maps and stuff, my DMs are open, or you can just hit me up on the Heroscapers Discord. Check out other maps by great map makers. If you'll let me shout out a couple of notable map makers here. Flash 19, like I said, Superfrog, Big Bullfrog, Sheep, Ulysses. Those are all great map makers, and Vidar as well. There are so many great map makers out there. Just go to the Heroscapers Maps and Scenarios thread, and you'll find a wealth of great competitive maps. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I love talking about maps. So
absolutely. No, thank you so much for coming on and giving us all this information that we'll definitely take to heart, and just a way to get started, and just broadening our horizons to this world of map making for sure. So thank you so much. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I need to get back to playing Virtual Escape, honestly. I haven't touched that in ages. I probably should open it up just to blow the dust off. And I kind of miss doing it, and I think I will be touching it again because Heroscape Adventure is coming to ScapeCon 2024, and I am currently working on a way for you guys to vote for what adventure that you'll show up. I'm coming up with three different scenarios for it to be. You can vote it. You can join my Discord and vote for yourself. I'm gonna hopefully have that done by the end of the week. But you can check out what Heroscape Adventure is now on the channel. There is a tutorial on how what Heroscape Adventure is, how to kind of play it, what it is. And then I actually have posted this past weekend, an actual game where we played Heroscape Adventure for the first time on camera at ScapeCon East, and Shurrig was there. He played Sonlin, and he was the healer, and he did some healing. And he also did a lot of dragon swooping of barrels.
True.
So. But I won't spoil anything else, because he does some pretty awesome else stuff in the game. But yeah, so I'm super stoked about showcasing Heroscape Adventure. I think it's just one of those, talking about how to get people to play your game, play Heroscape for the first time. I think it's one of those great ways to get them used to the mechanics, rolling of dice, even competitively, like how to get on height advantage, how to, avoid, do all that stuff. So that's what I'm working on. This week, I think I'm going to be working on maybe some YouTube shorts as well. I have not put together what video I'm doing next, at least for the big one. I haven't figured that out yet. I've been quite busy doing a lot of stuff. So, yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that's going on. I don't know, but I'll yield my time, so don't forget, I'm not crazy. I'm so crazy.
He's a map making mind shackled now. All right, thank you, Joe. Jason, go ahead.
Yes, I guess I showed up late and didn't say a whole lot, but you know what? It works, I guess. I think for me personally, my days of doing a lot of tabletop miniature wargaming tournaments are behind me, but I still have an odd fascination of how some of these things are run. So just listening to the whole thought process of building the maps, I just find that very interesting. Even if who knows when the next time I'll actually play in a tournament will be, but it's fun to learn about it. And if you want to check out some of my content, I'm over at Rocker Robotics on YouTube or tabletopbattlefield.com.
All right, thank you, Jason. Josiah, go ahead. Oh, Josiah, your mic's off. Mic's off. A connection issue again. We had this earlier.
New mic problems.
New mic problems.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice mic.
Perfect. I think I unplugged the cord by accident. Well, I'm Josiah, otherwise known as Heroscaper, currently unmuted, which is great. Yeah, so just fascinating topics. Sure, I could talk to you about this ad nauseum about all the maps, because that's one aspect. I posted a picture of one of my maps I built for just play. I'm used to 6-player casual free-for-all, so I'm trying to get more into this competitive mindset. And it's just absolutely fascinating combining just both the visual and the gameplay mechanics. And definitely be talking to you more about that. In terms of what I got going on, I'm just excited about the future. I got a bunch of fun stuff coming. If you're looking to make some custom glyphs, I just made a video featuring Joe Crazy in that. Definitely kind of proud of how that one turned out. So kind of go through that whole process.
Really good.
And get some more paint tutorials and some more just custom projects lined up. Coming in the pipeworks. So stay tuned for that. I do a lot of just pretty much mini painting, 3D printing, and just other general Heroscape stuff. So definitely give my channel a visit if you're interested in any of that. But other than that, yeah, thanks so much again, Shurrig, for showing up. We work together in a GC, so we talk a lot, but it's always just a pleasure.
Absolutely.
I yield my time.
All right, he yields his time. All right, and links in the description below for everybody, for all these things, for all the information on YouTube as well as Spotify. Check out those links. And I'm Ryan, Tales of Valhalla, and well, I do a lot of stuff, a lot of things, stop motion, Heroscape. I love things and stuff. Live stream every Wednesday, every Sunday. Check out all the things that I do and what all these guys said tonight. It's awesome. And map making 101. It was a good discussion. I thank you guys so much, and I thank you, Jack, for joining us tonight. And thank you everybody who was watching live, all the comments. I'm sorry I couldn't get all those live comments tonight, but we appreciate the interaction and the questions. Feel free to comment below for any subjects in the future. Thank you everybody for watching. You have a purpose in your life. Find it, pursue it, live it, and we'll see you guys next time. Later now. Bye-bye. Good night.